Hello, welcome back to this channel. Turning 40 can hit like a thunderbolt. One day you're fine and the next you're lying in bed asking yourself, how did I get here? What have I even achieved? Let's take a look at some videos to watch what people have to say about this.
I'm 40 and I wasted my life. I've got nothing to show for it. No house, no savings, no career that I'm proud of. And if you're in your 20s or even your early 30s and you think you've got time, I'm telling you right now, you don't. In my 20s, I thought I was, super deep and cool, and because I had tattoos and I knew some obscure bands and played drums, and I thought being different was a personality. I wasn't building anything real. I was just chasing sex and novelty, hooking up with women because I was addicted to the high, not the connection, just the rush. I wasted so many hours just trying to get validation from people who didn't care if I lived or died. At the end of the day, I thought my life was meaningful because it looked cool in photos, it looked cool on MySpace. But all I was doing was burning through the most valuable years of my life.
I think a lot of people after 30 begin to question their choices and think, oh, if I could just go back in time and change XYZ thing, my life would be completely different. But I actually watched this show recently that completely changed my perspective on a lot of this. It's called Becoming Erica. I'll give you a summary of the first episode. So Erica is a 32-year-old woman. She ends up going through a breakup. She gets a therapist. She tells this therapist that she wishes she could go back in time to some pretty pivotal events in her life and change them, because she thinks that if she would be able to change them, her life would be completely different. So this therapist actually has the power to let her go back in time and change some of these events. So the first event was high school prom. What had happened originally was that she got really drunk. A bunch of her friends made fun of her. She ruined the night. And so this time when she went back, she decided not to drink at all. But then what ended up happening, because she decided to not drink at all, her friends got mad at her. One of her friends got too trashed because she was mad at her for not drinking with her at all, and then ended up staining her dress. And then the friend ended up going into the hospital. Erica had to watch her while she's going to the hospital. Meanwhile, the guy that she was trying to dance with at prom ends up making out with another woman. The main point of the episode and the show in general is that Erica keeps going back to certain memories in her life and trying to change them, thinking that if she could just do the right thing this time, that everything in her life would have been different. But instead of it actually being better, a lot of times a new problem ends up happening. And I think the reason this is so important, a lot of times people, as they get older, they tend to look back on their younger days and think that they should have done a bunch of things differently, not realizing that their environment was different than it was now. And a lot of times how we act is based off of our environment. So for example, for me, of course, I wish that I could go back into high school and middle school, because I was a really big people pleaser. Because I was a people pleaser, I had a lot of issues growing up. A lot of my friends would kind of, secretly bully me. I was kind of the laughing stock of my friend circle. I ended up actually being homeschooled sophomore year because I was getting so bullied. And of course, I would love a world where I could just go back and change things and make myself more confident, thinking that it might get me better results. But the truth is that me being more confident or me being more kind isn't going to make my environment less mean. A lot of times people, when they're growing up and when they're younger, they do things to survive in that environment. So you can look back as a 30-year-old or as a 40-year-old and think, oh, I wish I wasn't as immature. I would have so much more healthier relationships with people. But a lot of the people in your age cohort aren't healthy. They are immature. And so I think that he's being a little bit too hard on himself when he's saying that his 20s was just all wasted time. Now, I do agree that he could have balanced partying with trying to find a stable job. That might have been something that if he went back and changed, his life could have been on a different trajectory. But I think that's a little bit different than when we're talking about people and our relationships with them. Because even if he would have went back and chose a more, kind, stable option in a woman, that doesn't necessarily mean that that relationship would have lasted. On the flip side, I've seen a lot of examples of people who end up making the opposite choice that he made. They're not chasing novelty and variety when they're younger. They're not chasing the hedonistic thrill. They decide to, get married really young and prioritize family. And some of those people end up feeling like they lose their independence. They end up feeling miserable. They feel stressed all the time. And then sometimes they end up getting into their 30s or 40s and deciding they want to divorce and missing out on their youth and wishing that they could go back and have the hedonistic rush that this man was able to have in his 20s. And so I think a lot of this sometimes is just the grass looking greener on the other side. The problem with life is that there's always going to be different paths that we could have taken, but we're never really going to know what could have happened taking that path as a 25-year-old, as a 18-year-old, whatever age that you're looking back on. Eventually, you have to make a choice, and there's going to be good and bad that comes from that choice. And I also think sometimes people look back on their youth not realizing how miserable they actually felt back then. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody, but I know that I've been guilty of that personally, where I've wish that I could go back just to feel like I had more time. But when I actually was that age, I was miserable and I wish that I could be older. There's always different struggles in different stages of life that you're going to deal with. And I think sometimes people can look back on different periods with rose-colored glasses because they're not remembering clearly the negative parts about being that age. Now, I say all this, and some people have genuine regrets, and I'm not trying to undermine their experience or take away from that. Some people genuinely could have went back and made different choices, and their life might have possibly been different. But this is more just to provide a different perspective, because I do think sometimes people beat themselves up for not no reason, but it's just the reality that you don't really know what would have actually happened if you would have made a different choice. Your life might have been worse. It might have, but you'll never know. You're in the body that you're in. You're living the life that you live now. It really is just about making the most of where you're at right now. That is just my personal opinion. So let me know what you guys think. Bye.
Turning 40 this year and everything is just hitting me right now. Just like, not where I wanted to be. I haven't succeeded at anything.
So did y'all see the video of the woman who is turning 40? And I don't want to say she was crashing out, but she was having, a little breakdown because she's about to be 40 and she feels like she hasn't accomplished anything in her life, especially at that age. And all the comments I was reading, everyone was saying, but you don't look 40. What a way to invalidate someone else's feelings, especially on this app. But this app is notorious for that. So I was just like, no, I honestly felt bad for her, because at 40, especially as women, we are told we should at that point be married, have a few kids, home ownership, just be stable in our careers, be stable in our lives. And at 40, if you don't have all those things checked off, of course people are going to judge you. So take it from someone that has checked off all the boxes, did what society told me and my friends we had to do, home ownership, marriage, master's degree, and we are now looking back at our lives like moving forward like, nah, this is not what we planned for it to be, and we are retracing, retracking, and trying to shift things in our life. You are not the only one. Don't feel bad. You are not the only one who has reached an age and feel like, it's not what it's supposed to be. So don't feel bad about it. Bye.
I just turned 40, and if you are in your 20s or your 30s, please, 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 you need to listen to this. I was doing some reflection on what I learned in the past 40 years. And what I realized is that every single traumatic instance, every single heartbreak, every single situation where I found myself in the most danger, I received the intuition not to go to that place, not to see that person, and I went anyway. Likewise, every single circumstance where I found the most joy, made the most money, found the best people, I received divine inspiration and didn't doubt it. I trusted it and followed it all the way through. You don't need these gurus on social media guiding your life. Yes, you can use them as inspiration, sure. But Ralph Waldo Emerson, in his essay on self-reliance, said that, and I'm paraphrasing, that successful people teach us only this. They teach us not to do what they do. They teach us to follow the light that's inside of us and trust it to lead us exactly to where we need to be.
Let me tell you something that will shock you. You're not late, you're just restarting. 40 isn't where life ends. 40 is where illusions die and clarity finally kicks in. This is not a breakdown, this is an awakening. At 40, you stop performing for people. You stop chasing timelines that were never yours. You stop living life based on society checklists, marriage, kids, career, money, validation. But even the people who checked all those boxes are quietly drowning in illusions that you'll never see. They are fighting battles you will never know. They never share those battles. So before you punish yourself and ask, did I fail or was I chasing someone else's scripts? Let's take a look at some comments and read what people have to say about this. This person said, not to be a determinist, but like you make the decision you make because it's all you could have done. And that's still true. We don't get to have hindsight while we are in it. We are always making decisions from where we are, and we can't do anything about that. Where you are at now is the best that could have happened, and it's okay to surrender to that and keep looking forward to what comes next. This other person said, it's a mindset. Refuse to let society dictate your life. Take the pressure off yourself. Someone said, I felt the way she did so much I couldn't accomplish, and hopes I had to let go of. But by 40s, we are great because all that stuff was no longer hanging over my head. Lisa said, I checked all the boxes too, and I am changing the trajectory at 55 years. It's going to be about me. Traveling and going back to the piano and swimming are on the list. We make our happiness and it's never too late. I'm 58. I can tell you this 100%. Every time I did not listen to the little alarm that was going off inside me, bad things happened as a result. As I got older, those feelings became harder to separate from overall anxiety, but it's possible. Fine-tune listening to your inner voice, and for God's sake, listen to it and live by it. This writer said, honestly, this message is very nice and refreshing to hear, because usually people come on the internet and they're like 10 things I learned about life now that I'm 40 or whatever, and it's so boring and it's so cliche and it's so overdone. I know there's nothing new under the sun, but this definitely felt fresh. This person said, I'm 43 and starting over again. It's beautiful to get to know yourself better and looking forward every day to see yourself becoming loved. Now, let's talk about what to do when you're 40 and you feel like you've achieved nothing. Rewrite your story. Your new chapter begins with clarity, not fear. Choose one thing and master it, not 10 goals, just one direction, one commitment. Cut out noise, people, habits, environments, anything that drains you should not follow you to the next chapter. Build stability financially, mentally, emotionally. This is your season to create structure and peace. Reinvent yourself, new habits, new skills, new identity. You are fully allowed to become someone new at 40. Take a look at these videos and be inspired by them. Let's take a look at these videos.
Juliet, I'm 40 years old. I'm a mom of 4. I'm sober. I struggled mightily with drugs and alcohol. I would say I've had more hard times than good times in my life, but the tables have turned. I have found freedom. I just want to share everything and anything that I think is great. That means my spirituality. That means my skincare. That means my sports. That means my exercise routines. I can't have these 4 wonderful children and not share them with you guys. So that would just be a total disservice. So I'm going to start sharing them. I have an amazing life, and I am 100% present and sober and clear and able to enjoy it. Even if you're not on the journey of recovery specifically, if you are on a journey to better yourself and become a better version of yourself than you were yesterday, I am here for it. And I am here with you, and I'm on that same journey. I am going to share all the little things that help me, and there's going to be a good amount of making fun of myself on here. That's just part of the course, because if we don't laugh, we'll cry.
When I turned 40, I literally started from scratch because I left generations. I left a job of 16 years. Without knowing where my next meal was going to come from. Because it was again, just that letting go of the fear that I've known this for most of my life.
Yeah.
And that fear and question of what does my life look like post this? But sometimes when you don't take those risks and chances, you will never know.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but turning 40 is not a death sentence. My 40s was the most transformative decade of my life. And now that I'm 50, I have a few tips to share with you. When you turn 40, there's no magic switch that goes on. Okay, you're not just going to magically change. The same person you were at 39 is the same person you are today at 40. You're the same person that you are in your 20s. Remember, youth is an energy, so tap into it. Whatever you do, don't get caught up in the numbers. Age is a feeling, and you're only as young as you feel. Your 40s is the perfect time to try new things and reinvent yourself. So if you want to go back to school, start that business, leave that stale relationship, get a divorce, trust me, go ahead and do it. Sky's the limit. There is nothing that is limiting you but your own thoughts and your beliefs that you are too old to start a new thing or to close an old chapter. Your 40s is a time where you should be limitless. And what I mean by limitless is have no boundaries. You can do what you want, go where you want, wear what you want, as long as you feel good in your own skin. If you don't get caught up in the numbers and allow your age to limit yourself, the sky's the limit. Your 40s should be the most transformative decade of your life.
Some people find their purpose at 20s, some at 40s, some at 60. Life doesn't reward early starters. Life rewards consistent builders. You didn't crash out. You simply outgrew the old version of yourself. Now it's time to rebuild with fire, with vision, with passion, with intention, and with courage. 40 is not your ending. 40 is your rebirth. If this video touched you, please don't leave without liking, subscribing, and turn on the notification button so you can see the next video. And remember, your journey is still unfolding. Your story is far from over. And your next chapter might be the most powerful one yet. See you in the next video.